Hello friends, Namaste, Hare Krishna. I thought I would give you a short video on the influences of the planets in the upcoming planetary lunar cycle year, which begins in a few days from April 1st of 2022 until March 21st of 2023. This will not be specific to any particular country. This will just be a general analysis of particular planetary conjunctions and what they might mean to the world in general. Firstly, we look at the Jupiter 60-year cycle. In this particular year, it is known in Sanskrit as Shubhakrit, which literally means overflowing, or it equates to the deliverer of good fortune. I know it sounds very good. It sounds very promising and optimistic. In some ways it is, in other ways less so. So let's look at the planetary conjunctions. The first one we're going to look at is Jupiter conjunct Neptune. Jupiter conjunct Neptune on April 1st will be 2 degrees apart, which is very close, and therefore the influences should be significant between these two planets and far more likely to take place. First thing is economic inflation. Well, as you all know, we already have it. It's here, and it appears it's here to stay for a while, which many of you have already figured out, no doubt. So the inflation will continue. I don't know whether it will continue for the entire duration of this lunar year, but don't be surprised if it does. And it may go up in terms of the inflationary degree in the next year, and that would not surprise me either. Sectarian and religious conflicts, political differences, dissension regarding ideas and opinions. I know most of you are going to think that sounds like the same old, or more of the same. Yeah, probably it is in many ways, particularly in the political sphere, since we are now involved in a war. Well, that's kind of naive to say that. There's several wars going on, but now there's one here in Europe. Not very close to where we live here in Ireland, but it is there. Russia having invaded Ukraine. Jupiter-Neptune conjunction promotes and empowers democratic movements. Well, I guess Mr. Biden will be happy about that, because that's what he seems to think he represents, is a democratic movement. And societal cooperation in some areas. So in other words, we'll be more likely to cooperate with each other in some areas. Airlines begin to stabilize. Well, I think that's already begun to happen. Elections that are held in this year will likely be fair. I'm sure that is not necessarily across the board, but it's encouraging. Health services and hospitals will improve. Well, that's good news, because here in Ireland they have 900,000 people on waiting lists, waiting for procedures and various medical tests, etc., to be done, and they haven't been done. And finally, project services and companies which benefit the people will likely improve or thrive. Well, that's also good, especially if the people are desperately in need of housing and medical care, what to speak of food in many countries. The next conjunction is that of Uranus and Rahu. Uranus and Rahu. Rahu is the north node of the moon. In case you don't know what it is, that's what it equates to in Western astrology. These two planets are 10 degrees apart, which is the 10-degree orb, which we expect is within the realm of mutual influence. Firstly, aggressive imperialistic tendencies, perhaps leading to war or territorial attacks. We're already here, my friends. Does this mean it gets worse, or does this mean it just perpetuates? I don't know. It sounds, at the very least, like it will perpetuate. Continuing, there will be earthquakes, pestilence, disease, and epidemic. These are possibilities, my friends. As I read these, do not think that they're all, set in cement. They're not. And some of them are varying degrees. Pestilence, disease, and epidemics, these are results of collective negative karma. We've talked about this in the past. Our behavior attracts these things into our lives, into our countries, into our world, into our families. Famines extending over a period of several years. Well, again, I would say there's probably those that are already extending. I think in Yemen, there's famine, and I believe in Ethiopia, perhaps. I don't have a list. So that may increase famines. A large number of deaths through plagues or similar diseases, epidemics. Now, I've already told you several times, at least the people, my clients that know me, there was no pandemic in the past 2 years. Because a pandemic requires that 20 to 60% of the people will be dead due to the pandemic. And all we had was less than 1%. So that is not a pandemic, no matter how much they promote it as such. There may indeed have been a virus, I don't question that. And that virus was also man-made in a lab. Whether it was in Harvard University or Wuhan, China, I don't know. Large number of deaths through plague, I said that. Construction of roads, so road construction should improve in this time frame. Institution of laws to protect the working class and working class or labor reforms, which will be good news to the working class or the middle class, who in many countries have their standard of living has dropped, and dropped significantly, while people on top, the billionaires, are accumulating more and more wealth. The people in the middle are being short-shrifted, short-changed, or put under duress. And that is pretty obvious. Next one, increased production in heavy industry. Well, I'm sure that's good news to the military-industrial complex, since there happens to be a demand for war weapons at the moment. And there's other kinds of heavy industry as well, as we know. And then also, because Uranus is involved, new inventions. So we'll see if there's some new inventions that are going to help or hinder. Then we can look next at the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Now, since March of 2020, we have had at the beginning of each lunar year, because this is the third lunar year in a row, whereby we've had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. This time they're 23 degrees apart, so they're not very close. That's the good news. Saturn represents democracy and the working classes. So what's good for Saturn is good for, again, labor, the working classes, the middle class. Pluto represents dictators and dictatorships. Well, my friends, if you haven't been living in a dictatorship or under the thumb of a totalitarian government for the past 2+ years, then God bless you. Because I know we have. Totalitarianism by governments and dictatorship should be reduced this year because these planets are not so close together, Saturn and Pluto. Well, at the moment, a lot of countries are open. We're not in lockdown, which is the good news, but they're now telling us that there's yet another variant. It's funny how they just keep pulling these variants out of midair. And now thousands more people are getting sick. And this has been, at least to my knowledge, in the last several weeks, not very long, 2-3 weeks. If Saturn triumphs over Pluto this year, we will demand and take back our democratic freedoms that have been stripped from us. Well, there was no place like in Canada that's been done. Unbelievable. This strikes close to home for me because I was born and raised in Canada, have not lived there for many years, but I feel very badly for my compatriots and how they're being treated by this totalitarian government led by a dictator named Trudeau. It also means the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, wars, I mentioned that, overthrow or death of the ruler. Well, that may be a good thing or a bad thing if it occurs. But remember, these planets may not be close enough for jazz or for the kind of effect that will allow some of these things to happen. And the last one is natural disasters causing much damage. The Mars-Saturn conjunction is the next one. 2 years ago, in March of 2020, we had exactly this conjunction of Mars and Saturn. Now, again, it has returned, but they are 2 degrees apart. They are just immediate neighbors. Not good. It means riots, strife, rebellions, rebellion against the military and the police. Again, not news to you. Civil strife, murders, looting, arson, written down here, even war. This is what I said 2 years ago when I did this. I didn't do one lunar yearly chart analysis. I didn't make this kind of video last year. I decided not to make it because I really hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's not me. So I'm going to get to the good news in a short while here. So bear with me. But the war, I predicted war then. Well, the war has finally come because we had a similar conjunction, not of Mars and Saturn, but Mars and Rahu last year in spring of 2021, which virtually means the same thing as Mars and Saturn because Rahu behaves like Saturn. National calamities such as epidemics, earthquakes, floods, storms. Well, you can bet that's going to increase. High numbers of deaths among the population. Overthrow or death of the ruler. Well, now it's coming out again. Saturn-Pluto conjunction says that, and Saturn-Mars conjunction says that. Change of government. So that's what we have there for those conjunctions. As far as commodities, diamonds, pearls, gemstones, silver, and cotton will likely increase in value this year. I do know there are a lot of people now investing in silver, gold, and also in Bitcoin or Ethereum. I'm not talking about that specifically because you really got to look at the 5th house in each country's chart to see how the stock market is going to go. I did not provide that today. Oil and petroleum will rise in value and cost. Again, already happened. It's already happening. Now, the good news. Jupiter is going to enter the sign of Pisces. Jupiter has I mentioned the 60-year cycle at the beginning of this talk. And now what I'm mentioning is the 12-year cycle. It takes Jupiter 12 years to go through the entire zodiac, the entire 12 signs. He travels through each sign for about a year, approximately, at a time. So Jupiter is going to enter Pisces for all of us on April 13th of 2022. And then he'll exit Pisces and enter Aries on April 22nd of 2023. So that's a good year. And what's good about this, there's everything about this is good and is good news. That's why I left it for last, because Jupiter rules Pisces. Jupiter is in its own sign in Pisces. The Sanskrit name for Jupiter is Guru. He's the great teacher. He is the spiritual planet among all of the planets. Jupiter brings good fortune, good karma, opportunity, divine grace, grace of God, grace of the gods, serendipity, and just good luck all around. The other Sanskrit name for Jupiter is Brihaspati, the great Lord. So when he shows up, everybody benefits, particularly if he's in Pisces in his own sign. Don't let it be lost on you that Pisces is the final sign, the 12th sign of the zodiac. So that is a sign of completion, culmination, and consummation. So we better have learned something, my friends. So what are the influences that we can expect? Good fortune, spiritual renewal, and human benevolence on the increase. Expansion of our consciousness and our conscious awareness. People will become more consciously aware. Well, the ones that want to be. The people who are on a spiritual path will find it far easier to be on that spiritual path. And here you'll see as we go some of the benefits that will come far more easily in this transit. We will experience a greater degrees of perception, understanding, and realization. We will begin to ponder to greater effect the repercussions of our actions, and more specifically, the consequences of our selfish, self-motivated, and self-serving actions. We will experience the opening of the hearts and minds of humanity, unless you're absolutely resisting it. This is a time for the return to innocence and purity of intent. It will enable us to question our motives and motivations and the real purpose behind our behavior and our actions. Everything you do, my friends, you have to look at in terms of, there's a goal, obviously. Well, I'm doing this because that's my goal, okay? And you're doing a particular action, fine. What is the intent, your intent, behind the action to begin with? Is that action going to benefit you? Is it going to enable you to follow your dharma, your path of dharma, and act in harmony with your God-given gifts and your fundamental nature? If so, wonderful. And is it going to benefit others? Is it good for you and good for everybody else? Or is it based in ego, where it's good for me, but I don't really care about anybody else? That's the intent that's driven by ego. We don't want that. And that's not what we're expecting in a Jupiter and Pisces transit. But this is the time to help you to become more conscious and looking at the intention behind all of your actions. Jupiter in Pisces leads to freedom from the shackles of greed, fear, and self-absorption. Oh, my friends, how much fear was used to program us and to condition us and to put us under a firm thumb of control over the past couple of years. That was their whole thing. It was all about the fear. We have to be willing to let go. We have to be willing to jump, to move forward. Giving to others, being inclusive toward others, giving the best of what you have to offer. It results in all of us, including you, gaining more. Don't think for a moment when you give to somebody else, you're losing out, you're missing out, you're being shortchanged and they're benefiting. That's not how it works, my friends. Any action you do, positive action or action that's based in love and in goodness, has a ripple throughout our entire world, our entire universe. And that ripple is like throwing a pebble into the middle of the pond, and you see the ripples going out and then coming back. That's how it works. This is truly the Piscean theme. It is charity, benevolence, altruism, humanity, philanthropy, generosity. It is spiritual love and surrender. For those of you who are truly on a spiritual path, let's just mention the 7 levels of love. Love of spouse or partner, love of children, love of extended family, love of nation, love of humanity, love of God. There's only one level, my friends, that encompasses all the other levels below that, and that's love of God. When one loves God, you don't like that term because the Christians have, or the Muslims have turned it into a negative term for you, then you can say the Creator, you can say Spirit, you can say that powerful energy that you recognize is there behind everything. That's what we're talking about. Loving God automatically includes humanity, which is part and parcel of God. Got a lot of bumblebees around here. We have a hive. We keep bees here. Jupiter in Pisces will bring great wealth and expansion of good fortune, and a downpour of realization, revelation, and epiphany for those of you who are trying to expand your consciousness. Jupiter in Pisces will introduce new vision, which may forge a new paradigm shift in the coming year. I'll tell you, my friends, if anybody needs a paradigm shift, now it's us. And I only, from the bottom of my heart, from my open heart, expansive as I can make it, I certainly wish that for all of us. It's much easier to establish a clear and direct communication to higher realms when Jupiter's in Pisces. The higher self, angels, demigods, the goddesses, God, higher beings who help you, whom you're connected to, whether you realize it or not, and of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I've been a Krishna devotee for 50 years, so that's my orientation. You can have your own orientation, but we still need to make that connection. This may also produce works which are considered to be breakthroughs or landmarks in what? Art, literature, poetry, music, dance, film, and theater. So all you visionaries out there, some of whom are thought to be mad women or mad men, which visionaries often are, and I mean that in a good way. This may be your year of breaking through, and may it happen. Now, this is important too. Many high souls or highly evolved souls will be coming into our world in this period, in this coming year, starting April 13th. So those of you who want to be pregnant, who are pregnant, want to get pregnant, and bring in a child, this is a fabulous year in which to do it, because the likelihood of your having, at the very least, a compassionate, understanding, and humanitarian child, generous child, is there. What to speak of a conscious spiritual being who can shift the karma, the consciousness, and help people to remove some of their karma or some of their sanskaras, their negative imprints and impressions that they carry, limitations, restrictions that they carry from past lives. Such a person or persons can easily appear in this time frame. So it is a time for divine births and spiritual rebirths. It is time for a global baptism and purification. So, friends, let's all go down to the river together and drown our paltry egos once and for all. Let us emerge from the water as the purified, compassionate, and loving souls that we are. Thank you.